Shalom, and welcome to our Heart-to-Heart End Times podcast. Today, we want to talk about a verse we think is important and has long been a battleground in end times teaching, 2 Thessalonians 2-3. Paul says, "Let no one deceive you, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed." Most Bibles translate that phrase as the falling away or the rebellion, and many teachers automatically take it to mean a big end times apostasy people falling away from the faith. But we want to share something we believe is crucial. We believe the translation falling away is not the best rendering here, and we believe Paul is talking about a departure, a leaving, a removal. And from our perspective, that departure fits the rapture perfectly. Now, let's walk through this slowly, because we're not trying to win an argument. We are trying to bring clarity and, honestly, comfort, because this passage was written to calm fearful believers, not terrify them. So why did Paul write this in the first place? Well, the Thessalonian believers were shaken. Somebody had told them the day of the Lord had already started. They were scared, confused, thinking, did we miss something? Did we miss Jesus? So, we believe Paul writes chapter 2 to do one thing. Stop panicking. You didn't miss it. And then he gives them a sequence, a timeline to anchor them. He says, certain things must happen first, and one of those things is what he calls the apostasia. The word translated falling away is the Greek noun apostasia. You'll recognize it because we get the English word apostasy from it. Many lexicons define it as rebellion or defection, especially spiritual rebellion. But here's where the debate comes in, and it's not new. Apostasia comes from a root meaning to stand away from, to depart, to withdraw. Some scholars and teachers argue that the most basic idea is departure, and context determines what kind. And what's really interesting is that 7 of the earliest English translations rendered it as departing or departure, which is part of why this conversation keeps coming back. So yes, many translators take it as spiritual rebellion, but there is a legitimate discussion historically and linguistically that it can be read as a departure. Why, we believe departure makes sense in this passage. Now, let's put the verse back into Paul's flow. Paul says, that day won't come unless the apostasia comes first, and then the man of sin is revealed. If apostasia is simply a general falling away, then we have a problem. When has there ever not been a falling away? I mean, you could argue there's been apostasy in every generation. So how would that be a clear sign to calm the Thessalonians? That's like telling someone, don't worry, the storm won't come until clouds appear. Clouds are always around somewhere. But if apostasia means a specific departure, something identifiable, global, and unmistakable, now Paul's comfort makes sense. In other words, Paul is saying, you haven't entered that day because the departure hasn't happened yet, and the man of sin hasn't been revealed yet. That's a timeline you can actually stand on. So, how does this fit the rest of 2 Thessalonians 2? Right after this, Paul talks about something restraining evil, the restrainer being taken out of the way before the Antichrist is revealed. So let's look at the pattern. Something is removed or taken out of the way, then the man of sin is revealed. That fits perfectly with what we've been teaching. The restraining influence of the Spirit through the church is removed, then lawlessness can rise openly. And if you pair that with the departure, it's even stronger. Paul's sequence becomes the departure or rapture, then the man of sin is revealed. Then the day of the Lord unfolds. That is exactly the order pre-trib teaches. Now let us bring this into identity, because you know that's where I live. So many believers don't understand who they are in Christ the body, the bride, sons and daughters, co-heirs, and because of that they read end times passages through fear instead of union. But if we are truly one with Christ, then the idea that his body remains on earth for God's wrath doesn't even fit the gospel logic. So, when Paul says there must be a departure first, we hear that as the Father saying, "My people are not appointed to wrath, they're appointed to reunion." And that's why we love this passage, because Paul's intent was comfort. He didn't write this chapter to create fear. He wrote it to stop fear. But isn't apostasy usually used for rebellion? That's the pushback, and it's fair. Yes, many scholars argue apostasia in biblical usage most naturally means defection, rebellion, often religious. So, we don't mock people who hold that view. We just don't think it fits Paul's goal here as cleanly. And even if someone insists it means rebellion, the timeline still says something happens first, and the Antichrist is revealed only after certain conditions. So, the larger point remains. You don't accidentally slip into the day of the Lord. But from my perspective, the departure view fits best because it matches Paul's comfort to anxious believers. The taken out of the way language in the same chapter, the restrainer teaching, and the identity of the church as not appointed to wrath. So here's the heart of it. Paul is not trying to scare the church into end-time survival mode. He's anchoring the church in certainty. You haven't missed Christ. You aren't in the day of the Lord. And the man of sin cannot be revealed until the departure happens first. And if you ask us, that departure is the rapture, the removal of the church, the bride going home, the body gathered to the head. That's not blessed fear. That's blessed hope. Again, we are so grateful to have you listen to this teaching today. Also, please subscribe to our channel. Have a wonderful day.
For a free ebook or Bible study, click the link to Pastor Rox's website below. We'd love to bless you. Have a wonderful day.